Huge things that tell Dogday is returning in Chapter 6. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into one of the biggest mysteries left behind after Chapter 4 and the reveal trailers that came after it, and that mystery is whether Dogday, the giant yellow smiling critter, is actually coming back in Chapter 6 of Poppy Playtime. And honestly, once you start lining up all the clues, the evidence feels almost too obvious to ignore, so grab a snack and get comfortable because this one goes deep. First, let us talk about what actually happened to Dogday during the events of Chapter 4. Players spent the entire chapter believing Dogday was the villain, only for the story to twist everything at the very end and reveal that Dogday was actually a victim the whole time, trapped and controlled through pain and fear rather than being a true monster. This emotional gut punch changed how the entire fanbase viewed him, and once the credits rolled, many players noticed his fate was left deliberately vague. His body seemed damaged and he appeared to fall or collapse, but the game never confirmed an actual death, and in a franchise built entirely around characters coming back from seemingly impossible situations, that alone should raise an eyebrow. Now let us bring in the official teasers, because this is where things start getting really interesting. Mob Entertainment has a pattern of hiding small details inside their promotional material long before a chapter drops, and if you go back and study Chapter 5 trailers frame by frame, there are shadows and shapes in the background of certain scenes that fans have pointed out resemble a large four-legged figure lurking just out of focus. Some believe this is simply an Easter egg, while others believe it is a direct hint that Dogday has been present the entire time, watching from a distance, waiting for the right moment to reappear. Next, let us talk about the toy factory and its symbolism throughout the franchise. Dogday was never just a random smiling critter. He was designed specifically as a comfort character meant to help children who struggled with fear and anxiety. This backstory makes him incredibly important to the emotional core of the story, and games rarely introduce a character with that much narrative weight only to discard them permanently, especially when their arc was interrupted mid-transformation. The story practically begs for a continuation, because right now Dogday represents an unfinished redemption, and unfinished redemptions in horror storytelling almost always return in a sequel. Another major point worth discussing is the relationship between Dogday and Kissy. Missy. Throughout the events of the game, Missy has consistently shown signs of independent thought and resistance against the influence controlling the other smiling critters. If Dogday shares any of that same spark of resistance, then his return could serve as a powerful narrative parallel, showing that not every corrupted toy is beyond saving. This would mirror themes already present in the franchise about identity control and the fight to remain yourself even under outside influence, and that thematic setup does not usually go to waste. Let us also look at statues and environmental storytelling inside the game world. Several hidden areas throughout Chapter 4 contain faded murals and old advertisements referencing Dogday, specifically tied to phrases about protection and guidance, which stand out as unusual details to include if the character was meant to be gone for good. Games like this thrive on environmental storytelling, and these small design choices are rarely accidental. When developers spend time crafting background lore for a character, it usually signals future relevance rather than a farewell. Now think about the marketing potential. Dogday quickly became one of the most popular characters in the entire Poppy Playtime universe. His design, his voice, and his tragic backstory resonated deeply with the community, and from a purely business perspective, a character with that much emotional investment and merchandise potential is extremely unlikely to be permanently written off screen. The developers know exactly how valuable that emotional connection is, and characters who generate that kind of reaction almost always find a way back into the main story eventually. There is also the timeline problem to consider. Chapter 4 ended with several unresolved plot threads, and one of the biggest questions left hanging was the true fate of Doey, the destroyed prototype. Dogday was deeply connected to Doey, both narratively and symbolically, and if Doey somehow returns or influences future events, then Dogday becomes an essential piece of that puzzle. Since he was the closest thing Doey had to an ally, the story simply has too many loose threads tied directly to Dogday for him to stay gone without explanation. Fans have also pointed towards subtle audio clues found within the game's files. Some data miners have claimed there are unused voice lines and sound effects that seem to reference Dogday in contexts unrelated to his boss fight. While unofficial data mines should always be taken with a grain of caution, the sheer volume of these findings across different community investigations makes it hard to dismiss entirely, especially when combined with everything else already pointing in the same direction. Another angle worth exploring is the theme of forgiveness that runs throughout the newer chapters. The story increasingly focuses on redemption for characters who were forced into monstrous roles against their will. If the writers are committed to that theme, then leaving Dogday as nothing more than a defeated villain would actually undercut the emotional message they have been building. Bringing him back back in a redemptive or heroic capacity would reinforce everything the story has been working toward and give his arc the closure it deserves. Let us not forget about promotional artwork either. Official artwork released around the announcement of later chapters has occasionally included color palettes and shapes that closely resemble Dogday even when he is not explicitly shown. These subtle visual callbacks are a common technique used by writers and artists who want to plant a seed early without giving away a major reveal too soon, and once you notice how often this yellow and white color scheme appears in supposedly unrelated promotional pieces, it becomes difficult to see it as pure coincidence. There is also the argument based purely on horror genre logic. In almost every long-running horror franchise, major characters who seem to die in dramatic, ambiguous ways almost always return later. This is not just a Poppy Playtime pattern, it is a storytelling tradition across the entire genre, and mob entertainment has shown time and again that they enjoy playing with these expectations rather than ignoring them. The ambiguous ending for Dogday fits perfectly into this larger tradition of horror storytelling where nothing stays buried for long. So when you put all of these pieces together, the unresolved ending, the environmental storytelling, the thematic setup around redemption, the marketing value, the audio clues, the visual hints in trailers, and the genre conventions of horror storytelling, becomes incredibly hard to believe Dogday is truly gone for good. Every signal points toward some form of return, whether that means a full redemption arc, a corrupted final form, or something entirely unexpected. The pieces are all there waiting to be connected. What do you think? Will Dogday make his return in Chapter 6, or is this all just wishful thinking from a fanbase that fell in love with a tragic character? Let me know your own theories down in the comments, because this community always finds details even sharper than what we cover here. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more theory content, because we are just getting started on breaking down everything leading up to the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more Dogday deep dives, and I will see you in the next one.